Hi, happy Friday. I want you to imagine that your brain is like a toddler. You wouldn't leave a toddler unsupervised. And yet, we don't supervise our minds. We don't supervise our brain. We assume that the way that our brain behaves, the sentences that it gives us, the emotions that those sentences create aren't optional. We just take it all to be true. But if you imagine for a second this little toddler who's very dramatic, who knows exactly what it wants, not always what's best, and who generally is just in their own space. They're not thinking about long-term consequences. They're not thinking about long-term gratification. They want instant pleasure. They want results right now. And there is no reasoning with them. You imagine that toddler. That's your brain. That is your brain. And like, our human brain is phenomenal. It is phenomenally powerful, complex and brilliant. And it does a whole heap of things. So we're only really talking about part of our brain here. But luckily for us, especially as functioning adults, we have the ability to rationalize with that toddler in our head. We actually have the ability to question what it's saying, to, rationalize what it's saying, to consider, if I carry on down that path and I follow my toddler brain, where does it lead me? So we are able to think to the future. We're able to plan ahead of time. We're able to think rationally and consciously and deliberately decide how we want to behave, or what we want to do, or the action that we want to take, or how we want to feel. Only very few of us are actually engaging that part of our brain. We are just completely being guided by this toddler in our head. You might have heard it as the monkey brain. But basically, we are allowing, especially the primitive part of our brain, to make decisions for us based in a world that it does not understand. So it's completely unsupervised, and you wouldn't leave a toddler unsupervised, especially when there's knives around. And yet we completely unsupervise our brain. So I'm not judging you for this. I'm not criticizing you. This is the human way. And until the point that you discover you have a choice. You actually have a choice. You don't have to listen and be guided by that toddler. You can, if you want to, go for it. But you don't have to. And I think one of the most powerful gifts that we can give ourselves is the skill of managing our mind, is that skill of listening to our thoughts, questioning our thoughts, deciding, are they helping me or are they not helping me? And this isn't about being positive. This is not about noticing your thoughts, seeing them as negative, and then forcing them to be positive. That's not what this is about. This is about very consciously, very deliberately deciding how you need to feel, how you want to feel about a situation. And sometimes that is sadness. Sometimes that's anger. Sometimes that's frustration. Sometimes it's anxious. I had a situation today with my son. We got to school on time. He realised he didn't have his tie. So we drove home, grabbed his tie, then got stuck in traffic, which meant that by the time he'd got back to school, the gates were closed. And at that point, the thoughts of, I'm going to get into trouble for him. I'm going to get into trouble. Of course, if you're really believing you're going to get into trouble or that something bad is going to happen, of course you're going to feel anxious. That thought will create anxiety. That's not the problem. The problem is we haven't questioned that thought. We've just assumed it to be true. I am going to get into trouble. This is a life or death situation. And when you're in that survival state, your brain can't think rationally because it literally thinks we need to run or we need to fight or, freeze. So when you're in that survival state, you're not engaging your higher brain. Whereas when you just take a deep breath, when you look around you and you realise we're okay. I'm safe in my car. We're sat in traffic, but we're not about to die. Your brain thinks you're about to die. We are not about to die. We're fine. Everything's okay. You can even thank your brain for trying to keep you safe because that's what it's trying to do. And when your nervous system has calmed down a bit, then you can access your higher brain. So then we were able to go, okay, what actually is going to happen? Well, worst case scenario is that maybe he gets told off and he gets a hub detention, but he's never been late before, so that's unlikely to happen. So actually, when you think through, and maybe for you, it's a client meeting, what is going to happen? Worst case scenario might be that the client is really pissed off. Okay, it's not ideal, but that's not life or death. Whereas in that moment of anxiety, your brain thinks it's life or death and you go into a spiral. And actually then what happens is you create more negativity. All because we're not really supervising our brain in that moment. Or because we're just going along with it and agreeing with this little 3-year-old that has no idea what's going on in our actual life. So my tip for you this week is just to just notice with compassion. This isn't another reason to beat yourself up. Just notice with compassion, what is that brain doing in your head? Because it will be thinking, I guarantee you, it will be churning something over. You have a human brain. It's a processing machine. It has 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. That's what it's designed to do. But you can direct it. You can guide it, and you can give your brain a task to think about. How can I manage my time better? How am I going to figure that out? How, please go off and give me an idea about this. And if you ask your brain, it will give you answers eventually, because that's what it wants to do. It wants to think, it wants to churn. And whenever you feel a negative emotion, just stop, take a deep breath, remind yourself you're safe. If you're not safe, please run or fight or follow your primal brain. But generally, most of the time, it is not a life or death situation. So you can calm your nervous system down. And from there, engage your higher brain and make a conscious decision. And if you need any help with this, I can help you. I can help you learn how to manage that voice in your head. And I would love to give you the opportunity of creating the best version of yourself when you do that. Have an amazing week, and I'll speak to you again next week. Bye.